Kind enough to let me sit in his seat today and drive the captain's chair. He should be joining us in just a moment here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. I got a lot I want to talk to the man about, but he's down in Charlotte for the All-Star game. By the way, NBA's All-Star Weekend begins tonight, presented by Boost Mobile. Check out the NBA Rising Stars Challenge at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on most ESPN radio stations. I got most of these people around here nervous today. What do I want to talk about this? What is this? Let me run that through Chuck. Well, Chuck, what do you think about what Will wants to say about Kevin Durant? I don't know. Let's talk to Liam. I've been talking to everybody and telling them there's not many times that a massive news story, I'm talking about general interest news story, you can see bleed over into the world of sports. I'm not telling you direct connections, but if you peel onion layers back, you begin to see connections. And I'm here to tell you today, there's a connection between Amazon pulling out of New York City and Kevin Durant becoming a Knick. I'm going to lay that out for you here in about 20 minutes on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. But right now, I'm joined by the man himself, Stephen A. Smith from Charlotte, North Carolina. What's up, man?
What's going on, Will Kane? Appreciate you filling in for me, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. How you feeling? You back? You feel good?
I'm back. I'm back. I'm feeling better. I'm not 100%, but I'm feeling better. I just had to do the first take down here in Charlotte and a whole bunch of other NBA obligations. That's why you're filling in for me. I really appreciate it. I know you're holding it down, but I hope you're remembering to be respectful and understand whose seat you're sitting in, and you are conducting yourself with the level of respect you're supposed to be giving out, sir.
Well, I'll have to put that to the audience. I will tell you, I took your little booster seat and I threw it across the room, and I got my feet up on the desk. All right, man. I got to ask you this. I think this news broke right after you got off the set of First Take today, and I opened your show with it about an hour ago. Dell Demps fired as general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans. Stephen A., can I just tell you, I believe he's being made a patsy of. I cannot believe he's the fall guy for, in their own coach's words, an absolute dumpster fire in New Orleans. What do you see?
I think you're right, and I put it on the air because Wojnarowski tweeted about it. Like with 5 minutes left in the show for First Take, and it's absolutely what Alvin Gentry highlighted, and it's put Dell Demps in the line of fire. But I will say this: Dell Demps had been on the job for 9 years. There was only two playoff appearances. Actually, it was 3 playoff appearances in that span. They had gotten past the first round just once. He did have ample opportunity to get the job done, and in some people's eyes, he did not. Now, where you and I really, really align in our thinking is the fact that when he wasn't able to, when Anthony Davis just dropped it on them via Clutch Sports and Rich Paul, you had them in their own way speaking out. You had Magic Johnson obviously speaking out about the Pelicans. And so that put the Pelicans and specifically Dell Demps in the line of fire, because when you have those people speaking out against you, you know, names like Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Rich Paul, and those guys, if their names is attached to a story that obviously negatively affects you or enlightens people about you in some sort of negative light, that's not going to be a plus for a GM, particularly an African-American GM who has had 9 years to get the job done and failed to do so. And so when you look at it from that perspective, it's predictable what transpired. It's not overly shocking. If I'm surprised by anything, is that I thought they would at least wait until the end of the season to make this move. The fact that it's happened now is slightly surprising, but it's far from earth-shattering. Clearly, they've wanted to move in a different direction. That's the scuttlebutt that we were hearing in the weeks leading up to the trading deadline, and it's now reached fruition.
You know, Stephen A., what I can't figure out is the timing, man, because, and you correct anything I get wrong here, but my understanding was that he was executing ownership's wishes in New Orleans in not trading AD at that time and not trading AD to the Lakers. He was in lockstep with Gail Benson and everyone else in New Orleans. If you told me today, and you did, and I can see it, and anybody can see it, that he just didn't do his job over 9 years to entice Anthony Davis to stay. He didn't build a team around him that avoided this situation in the first place. I would get that argument. But the timing of now makes it look like, why? He did what you wanted him to do.
Well, here's where it gets interesting, Will. Here's where it gets, and this is not me speaking to anybody this morning about it, Will. This is just what I deduced from my weeks of reporting on this story. I think the key to all of this that was most damaging to Dell Demps was Rich Paul and Clutch Sports revealing that the reason that they publicized Anthony Davis' desire to be traded was because they didn't trust that Dell Demps was taking their request back to ownership in the fashion that they were disseminating it to him. Mm-hmm. That's what I get the impression of. Anthony Davis getting checked for an MRI. Anthony Davis didn't want to be there. Anthony Davis giving indications that he didn't want to be there, wanting to address it with discretion behind the scenes, not publicizing it or putting the Pelicans in a bad situation. They swear that it's something that they tried to do with Dell Demps, but Dell Demps, they didn't trust that he was going back to ownership and revealing it to them, the details that they wanted revealed. So essentially that forced their hand. So if you're the Pelicans, you're thinking about all of this bad PR, the kind of stuff that you've been involved in. And if you reach the conclusion that it happened because the agents that have to deal with Dell Demps had no respect for him, no trust for him, or the combination of the two, then that would incentivize you as an ownership to move in a different direction.
Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today on the Stephen A. Smith radio show on ESPN Radio. Hanging out with Stephen A. I know I only have you for another 6 minutes or so, Stephen A., so let me see if I can hit two topics with you.
Sure.
One, you've alluded to twice now, and I talked about it earlier. We got to start being real honest. And I don't think honesty means negative or positive. It just means honest about Rich Paul, Clutch Sports, and LeBron James. You're talking about the role they played in these Anthony Davis negotiations, and I think we've all come to see how powerful they are. In turn, they go and watch Duke versus Virginia, and I got to say it was in Virginia. Earlier I said it was at Duke. It was at the University of Virginia, and people might have raised some eyebrows. LeBron thinks that's unfair, and he even brought up race in that equation. Do you think that is fair of LeBron in turn?
To bring up race?
To bring up race, and also to be like, why are people raising their eyebrows at us going to see Zion and Duke?
I think LeBron was right to bring up the raising of the eyebrows. I said on First Take that I agree with that. I do not believe race should have been brought up into this equation at all. There are many outstanding African-American agents, Bill Duffy, guys like the Goodwin brothers, Aaron and Eric, along with others, that, Leon Rose and others who represent NBA players. They happen to be black. So don't come to me and tell me that people are going after Rich Paul and LeBron James because they're black, because some of the people that go after them are black. So that doesn't hold water. But it does need to be mentioned that when LeBron James points out or Rich Paul points out that they've gone to see folks play before, that Shaq came to see LeBron when he was in high school, that AI came to see guys when they were high school players or in college. Those are valid points.
Yeah, but Stephen A., this is what I said to that. LeBron isn't Shaq. See, Shaq and AI were just basketball players, and I'm not diminishing them. They were just superstars and legends. LeBron is a superstar, a legend, and a mogul. A production and Hollywood mogul and an agency mogul. And so when people see him and see how active Clutch was with AD, and now see him hovering around Duke, eyebrows are going to get raised.
No, you're not understanding. You and I agree. What I'm telling you is that what LeBron is trying to convince you is that he's just a player and an athlete and a sports fan who appreciates the greatness of guys that are out there. He doesn't want to be seen as an agency mogul. That's what he's trying. He's trying to deny that, Will.
He's trying to play it both ways. In
other words, when you're talking about Rich Paul and Clutch Sports, he's like, I'm represented by this guy. He doesn't want us to acknowledge that, excuse me, LeBron James is Clutch Sports. Right. That LeBron James, a lot of people view LeBron James as having a significant stake in the well-being and the welfare of Clutch Sports. And so because it's viewed in that light, he's not perceived as a guy, an athlete that's being represented by an agency.
So he's
actually perceived as the agency.
Yeah, he wants us to be blind.
He doesn't want you to do that.
Yeah, he wants us to be blind. Okay, great, cool. Last one, Stephen A. I got to get you on Kaepernick and the AAF. The AAF reportedly recruited Kaepernick, reached out to him. He said, fine, give me $20 million. What are your thoughts?
If they're willing to give him $20 million, he should do it. If they're not willing to give it to him, let him continue trying to sue the National Football League. But the bottom line is that whether or not he's been blackballed or not, people have their views on that. Of course, I believe that he has been. I haven't forgotten he was 1-10 at the start in his last 11 games. He was 3-16 in his last 19 games as a starting quarterback. He didn't complete 60% of his passes, and it was questionable as to whether or not he would be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. None of that escapes me. Do I think that he's been blackballed? Absolutely. But I also think it's worth noting that if you think it's just because he took a knee, wait a minute, he is suing the league, and there's very few employers that would take care of you if you're trying to sue them at the same time. So I think those are things that can't be ignored. You got to pay attention to it. Again, I'm not absolving the owners out there who have successfully gone about the business of blackballing Colin Kaepernick, but I'm just saying his hands are not completely clean in this matter, and I think that's worth noting.
All right, it's Stephen A. Smith on the Stephen A. Smith Radio Show. Go have fun at All-Star Weekend. Go hobnob. Be big time. I'll see you back on Monday here in New York.
All right, my man. Thank you again.
All right, take care, Stephen A. It's Will Kane filling in for Stephen A. today as he's down in Charlotte for the All-Star Game. By the way, need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. Speaking of Colin Kaepernick, here is a joint statement from the NFL and Kaepernick and Eric Reid on settling the collusion suit. For the past several months, counsel for Mr. Kaepernick and Mr. Reid have engaged in an ongoing dialogue with representatives of the NFL. As a result of those discussions, the parties have decided to resolve the pending grievances. The resolution of this matter is subject to a confidentiality agreement, so there will be no further comment by any party. Wow. There is breaking news. Right at the end of our Stephen A. Smith conversation, Nuno puts this up for me. It's the NFL, Kaepernick, and Eric Reid together putting out a statement. Their collusion lawsuit, Kaepernick and Reid, against the NFL, now settled. That settlement will be sealed. It'll be private. You and I will not get to know the terms of that settlement. I'm sure we will not know, or it'll be very difficult for us to know what financial payout there was. And by then extension, we could see what kind of perceived guilt that would imply. See, here's the thing about lawsuits. Whenever a lawsuit is settled, people assume that means one party is admitting to either A, the weakness of their case on one side, or B, the admission of guilt on the other. It isn't. A lot of times, what's going on is both parties just wanting it to end, wanting it to go away. The whole, by the way, legal system is designed to get to this point. Arbitration, you've heard of that term? Lawsuits, the whole system is designed. I'm telling you, this is a guy who went to law school, practiced a small bit. The whole point is to avoid a trial. My dad was a plaintiff's attorney growing up, prided himself on being like a Perry Mason, wanted to always be in the courtroom, wanted to make his argument, wanted to stand up and yell objection, wanted to win. I grew up like that. I wanted to win. I went to law school for that reason because I idolized my dad. I watched him do it. By the time I went to law school, late 90s, early 2000s, I could already see nobody goes to court anymore. Nobody goes to trial. Nobody argues it anymore. It's all paperwork pushing and going towards settlements. Why? Because that's more efficient. The only way to really get in the courtroom was to be a criminal lawyer, and so that's the path that I went. I started doing clerking at criminal law firms, taking interest in taking classes in criminal law, be a prosecutor, defense attorney. That's how you get in the courtroom. Because on the civil side, and this is what Kaepernick and Reid's case against the NFL was, a civil suit, nobody wants to drag it out. Nobody wants to pay the money to keep the lawyers fighting. Nobody wants to pay for the trial. Nobody wants to potentially lose the money, so a settlement comes. That's really how the system is designed. Now, it could be an admission of guilt. It could be the NFL going, we don't want this stuff to see the light of day. Maybe Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell did talk and say, can't let this guy back in the league. Or maybe Kaepernick and Reid realized this isn't going to get anywhere. This is better to make it go away. I don't know, and we won't know as long as it's sealed. But now let's move the conversation to the next step. Now that Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid's collusion case with the NFL has been settled, what door does that open? Is Colin Kaepernick now more readily accepted into coming back into the NFL? Certainly, while you're suing, as Stephen A. just pointed out to us, while you're suing a potential employer, or you have a grievance, a CBA, a grievance against a potential employer, you're not going to have a very good luck getting hired by that employer. Does this make it easier for Kaepernick to re-enter the league? He's 31 years old. His last 2 seasons not great, but his last season, pretty good stats. He enters a league where the free agents, he enters the potential availability in a league where it's Nick Foles on the trade market. Joe Flacco just got traded. Teddy Bridgewater. Ryan Tannehill. These are your options out there. How does Colin Kaepernick stack up against him? And what does he want? Because the news before this was the AAF, the Alliance of American Football, offered an opportunity to Colin Kaepernick, and his response was $20 million. Less than 24 hours later, we hear the news that his lawsuit, his collusion grievance with the NFL has been settled. Let's go to Andrew in Orlando. What's up, Andrew? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Will Cain today.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey.
Yeah, I got to say that, I was hearing about your Kaepernick talk, and I agree with you that maybe the price of admission for $20 million to Kaepernick to join the AAF is a little bit high. But at the same time, I got to push back on you because what exactly does he have to gain? I mean, if you're using the AAF as a vehicle, like you said he should do to kind of ingratiate himself back with NFL or getting back into the league, then it's good. But I don't think there's any reason for him to don't do that because what does he have to gain? I mean, you're playing with players that probably won't have a good skill level, that won't be able to add anything to what he's doing as far as being on the football field, and it won't be a good look for him as far as getting back into the NFL.
Okay, Andrew, let me answer your question,
doing the
okay?
right thing by not doing that.
Let me answer your question. You guys don't have to take him down, Nuno Cat, or don't have to get rid of him. I'm going to try to answer Andrew's question. I think it goes like this, Andrew. I think there's 2 things he stands to gain. First of all, it's funny how this works, how news cycles work. If the conversation on Kaepernick wasn't always stuck around the anthem protest or the protest during the national anthem, if it wasn't always stuck around, will he kneel, won't he kneel? If it always wasn't stuck around, honestly, a lot of the issues he wants it to be stuck around. And I'm not passing value judgment on that. I'm not telling you right or wrong. I'm just telling you that's where it is. If the conversation on Kaepernick actually moved forward to football, to play on the field, and even if that was through the AAF, that would be a change in how we talk about and view Kaepernick. And that would help Colin Kaepernick, the football player. It might not help Colin Kaepernick, the symbol, the martyr, the cause-oriented human being, but it would help Colin Kaepernick, the football player, because the latest thing we saw, the latest thing we talked about, the latest thing in the front of our mind would be Colin Kaepernick on a football field. And then second, I just think, while you're right, the AAF isn't ideal, you have to arrive at a place at times where you're like, ideal isn't going to be my option. I'm going to have to take less than ideal to move back to ideal. I'm going to have to take a step back to move forward. Did he have to take a step that far back, all the way to the AAF? Could he have taken a step to backup quarterback in the NFL? Could he have taken a step to the Baltimore Ravens? Could he have taken a step to the Seattle Seahawks? I don't know. But I know that it might have taken a step back to move forward. What do you say to that, Andrew?
Well, I say that, he doesn't have to take a step back that far at all. As far as I'm concerned, he was in the Super Bowl. He had the chance to go to a Super Bowl another time. He's already done enough on the football field in the NFL at the highest level possible to speak for himself. To step back and say, I'm going to play for the AAF, and you guys are going to pay me $20 million if they would agree to that. I would have said, okay, that's fine. AAF needs storylines. They need whatever it is to kind of boost their ratings because they have good first-week ratings, but you can't really expect that to continue with the talent level that they have in that league. He has a better chance of making an impact on a community, a culture, doing what he's doing, being a martyr, standing up for political injustice, standing up for what's right, fighting against the NFL, which he obviously is, as I say, he won the case, even though, when the arbitration comes in, there's no real winner or loser. It just makes it go away. But in my eyes, that's a W for him and Reed.
All right.
I think he has more of an impact doing that than playing in the AAF.
I hear you, Andrew, and I appreciate your point of view. Even if I disagree at certain points, I appreciate your point of view. I just think we have to be clear and be real, because that's my whole game. Let's be real. Let's be truthful. Then what we need to be real about, and I appreciate the call, Andrew, what we need to be real about is then it's more important to Kaepernick, more important to you that to be a martyr for a cause, be a symbol, than to be a football player. Because I'm not arguing that he hasn't proven on the NFL field. I'm not arguing that he has to take a step all the way back to the AAF. I'm just arguing that you have to be real. And despite those Super Bowl appearances and despite those stats you rattled off, Andrew, you know what was real? He was unemployed. That's where you stand. That's where you are. Do you want to be employed? Do you want to be a football player? Okay. Then what's the next best first step? The breaking news is that Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reid, and the NFL have put out a joint statement. The collusion grievance between those parties has been settled. What's next for Colin Kaepernick? ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $668. We'll keep talking about what's next for Kaepernick, but I also want to lay out for you this, why a major news story in the mainstream media cycle could actually affect Kevin Durant to the Knicks. That's next on the Stephen A. Smith Show, hosted by Will Cain today on ESPN Radio.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people!
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook.